Welcome to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Eric and Donna. I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And what are we going to talk about this week, Eric?
Well, let's do a quick hit episode discussing Hellraiser. Since we did that to start the whole thing off was Hellraiser, I, I feel like it's only fitting that we kind of deep dive into this newest imagining on Hulu.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite interesting, that's for sure. I'm just going to bring up the poster here for us to stare at.
I'm gonna be honest. I was kind of disappointed when you read the blurb and it says a take on Clive Barker's '87 horror classic. So, and other things that we've looked at says a reimagining
Yeah.
of, Hellraiser. So that's not what this is. This is basically a sequel. This could have easily been Hellraiser 20 or whatever number they're up to,
Right, right.
because none of it is Hellraiser from Clive Barker. It's just his characters, and not the all of them, just the characters, the Cenobites.
Yeah.
Um, So right away, I'm thinking I was disappointed with that part. Um, because we're in this cycle now where we're remaking everything, or as they like to say, reinventing or reimagining.
Reboot.
And
Rebooting,
so,
yeah.
but even a reboot is still almost always that first movie is just the original movie redone.
Right.
There's a few changes, but it's still that movie. And we're missing Frank, and we don't have the girl who's very we decided was really important to the whole the
Kirsty,
daughter,
yeah.
yeah, Kirsty. The setting, I don't know, just all of it. I was really disappointed. To me, this was we made Pinhead a girl, and that's the selling point. It's not
Right.
anything else. And that's not really reinventing or reimagining anything because she didn't bring anything. I didn't think she was anywhere near as good as um, the main guy. What's
Yeah.
his name? I can't even think of his name. I have it written down somewhere, but the original Pinhead. I thought,
Yeah.
there's something about him. There's a charisma about him more so than just the pins. You know what I mean? The way he carried himself, the way he delivered the lines.
There's a
Um,
more terrifying feel to him,
yeah,
like
and I
intimidating feel to him.
and and to the point where he wasn't even really supposed to. I don't think originally they planned on him being the face of the franchise, and yet he just took over that
Right.
first movie, and then it just kind of went with that. And you could tell in the few in the other the sequels, they started focusing more and more on his character and
Hmm.
how he became Pinhead because he's that fascinating. And in this, to me, the only sales that they're like, oh, it's a woman, but they didn't do anything to make you feel like because all the characters were women. I actually was more intrigued by the feminine chatterbox.
Yeah.
I thought the way they made it look was more what I imagined all of them should have looked like from the book.
Right. Yep.
And they were way so this was like Pinhead's a dude, we see him as a dude, we get this Pinhead, she is obviously a woman. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
Chatterbox actually has that
Androgynous feel.
body frame that
Yeah.
you're like, well, it could be either or, and that's how they describe him in the book. So
Hmm.
even if you were trying to sell me on that, I mean, to me, if the only thing you do is change something about one of the characters physically, but you don't give us anything else to make it important, then that's not really a reinventing. You know what I mean? That's not
Yeah.
reinventing character or doing anything. I don't know. To me, it could have been a simple Hellraiser movie in any of the formats.
Yeah.
I didn't, I did not enjoy it. If we were
Yeah.
going to talk about it, I would have turned it off and gone on with my life and never finished it.
Yeah. I have to be honest. I watched it, and you and I were texting, and we were kind of around the same part of the movie when I sent you that text. But I wasn't I didn't stay paying attention to it. I would pull
Right.
out my phone and scroll through Facebook, or I would go to the bathroom, or whatever. It wasn't one of those movies where I was like stuck to the screen and I was like, I need to watch every single second of this movie, you
And what's
know.
funny is that if you go back and watch our first discussions, because we discussed the Hell Bound Heart and then we discussed Hellraiser, I'm not a huge Hellraiser fan. I'm not the movies have never really been anything that I've watched, religiously every Halloween or anything like that. I've seen them, but I've never been like a huge fan. And I enjoyed watching Hellraiser when we watched it, talked about it. And I've recently watched Hellraiser 2, and I really like that one, even though it's limited because of the special effects available at the time.
Right.
So when I went into this one, I had no dog in the hunt. I was actually looking forward and kind of hoping it was going to be pretty cool. Um, and then it just kept going on. I kept thinking, okay, well, are we here? Are we gonna get there? Are we gonna get there? Now they did do the one thing that I think we complained the most about with the original Hellraiser was there wasn't enough of the Cenobites in the movie.
Yeah.
They're in it quite a bit, but still
Hmm.
not near as much as you would want.
Right. And I just did not find any, yeah, there were some gory parts.
But didn't it
They,
feel like it was just doing it to do it? Just like
yeah,
the sex scenes.
yeah,
They didn't feel like if it actually stood out. You're like,
yeah.
oh, okay, here's where we have to put this sex scene, and they went over the top. I was like, because comparative to some of the stuff coming out now, where it felt like they were like, a sheet falling away from being pornographic, but which is, whatever. But it was like they were ramping up the sex scene,
Hmm.
ramping up the gore to try and hit that the note they thought they needed to, but the whole time they just completely forgot about the story.
Yeah. So, and speaking about the sex, so the sex scene, yeah, but it missed a lot of the sensuality
Right,
of the
absolutely
original movie.
right. And
There wasn't a lot of sex in the original Hellraiser, but it was a very sensual movie. Like when Frank had her, you know,
yeah,
Julia, with the fingers on the mouth and, just the flashbacks of to when they first met.
well, 100%.
Yeah,
The whole that book and the original Hellraiser, we discussed that about how sexuality itself was front and center
right,
with everything. But the whole point of that movie is Frank's journey on this weird sexual journey that he himself is taking to try and unlock unseen pleasures and everything else. And it's like they completely forgot that. Every time somebody opened the box in this movie, it wasn't for them to awaken this pleasure pain journey that they that the Cenobites are always talking about. It was for them to be destroyed so that whoever was in control of the box could go to the next level,
right.
which I thought that was a dumb idea.
Yeah,
Just the whole thing.
I wasn't really cool on the whole plot line. The
I mean,
whole
the
st
whole point of the box is that you get the box, you get the Cenobites to show up, and they're supposed to introduce you into this amazing journey, and you were allowed to decide if you wanted to go. Remember, because they did that with Christy. They were trying to make your decision. Are you going to go? Are you coming? Or whatever. And then she had to barter to get out of it. But
right,
they didn't give the people who were cut an opportunity to barter. They were immediately chained and ripped apart or whatever they did to them, because they did make it sound like the brother got a whole bunch of stuff done to him later that you never see anything about.
right.
They said something like his ending was exquisite or something of that nature.
Yeah,
But so they allowed whoever had the box to barter, but they were killing all these other people, and that wasn't the gist of the original Hellraiser. At least I never got that in the book or the
yeah,
first two movies.
yeah,
Now, I haven't seen all the sequels, so I don't know if it's changed. I haven't read all the literature, so I don't know if that's changed. But this to me was this was somebody wrote a story and they needed to find like I don't know, a recognizable spokesperson. And they said, okay, let's make it Pinhead and Hellraiser and slap that on here. And then we have the story that will make work.
right.
but they changed all the things that make Hellraiser great, I think.
I agree. I agree. The, it wasn't about what the original Hellraiser was about. There wasn't that um, air of sensuality about it, even though it was a horror movie. Um, the Cenobites were too pristine. Like there were two of them, um, maybe three. So the Pinhead, the
Chatterbox.
Chatterbox, and then the one that I think was their friend that got taken from the van. They had perfect teeth. All right. This is some, I'll just say demon for lack of better word or descriptor. Um, these are people, things that live in hell, and they're like, and they have perfect teeth.
Well,
Like
that
not even fangs or anything. So I guess the Cenobites have a great dental plan.
well, I'm thinking that dentist work is painful, so that's part of the thing. They put you in the
Yeah,
chair, they get the dental work done, then they peel your flesh off, drive things into your head. That way
yeah,
you have the nice teeth when you go. But you know what the billionaire calls them angels. And then that's something that's reflected in the original Hellraiser 2 is that I think Frank considered them angels or whoever sold the box to Frank. So there's like this blurred line of is it heaven, is it hell? They're taking you to a different place.
right. Yeah, I think the line
Or
is some
it,
consider them angels, some consider them demons or something like that.
yeah, and then you're also talking about just dimension. They're in a different dimension, so maybe they're not really demons, but again, they're just, masochists of the highest order. But yeah, no, I nothing about this. Nothing about this was like, oh, it wasn't even enjoyable.
Yeah,
You don't connect with the characters initially, none of the normal characters. So you don't really care that they're getting destroyed. By the time you might care, you're just kind of ready for it to be over with. And I was kind of hoping she'd just start stabbing people because they only
yep,
needed two more people, and I was like, just stab the guy. And
yeah,
then the ultimate betrayal, which was very cliche, and yet I don't even feel like she took that the wrong. It's like she took that in stride. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know. Everything about it was just like unbelievable.
yeah. It
And
was kind of, yeah, not good. So yeah, Riley, um, the main character, um, and this is gonna sound really awful, but I was distracted by her lips this whole movie, and not in a sexual way, but in a way it looks like somebody had punched her in the face. Like I don't know this actress. Um, maybe I've seen her in stuff before, but I don't recall. But either she just got collagen injections in her lip before she started filming the movie. If that's her natural look. It was just that was the focal point for me because they just seemed so unnatural on
and
her
that
face.
yeah, I didn't find her to be very believable. I don't know. I mean, I guess she was fine. I
Yeah.
don't know what we were supposed to think. I don't know what we were supposed to, but we didn't connect with her. I
Mm-mm.
wasn't, I didn't, I was thinking the whole time, well, her brother's obviously put up with a ton of stuff, but he was more of a jerk than anything, the way he was dealing with her. But I get that. But I mean, it's that weird thing where she's supposed to be a drug addict. He's supposed to be at the end of his ropes, but he wasn't really acting like he was at the end of his ropes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And none of their arguments came across as genuine. None of the problems came across as being real problems. It was almost as if she was like her drug addiction was not even, it's not, it was like, it was more like, oh, I can't. I'm trying to think of how to word this properly. It's like it was like something she dabbled in. Like he's
Yeah.
upset that she
Yeah.
dabbled in drugs, not that she was a hardcore drug user. And she really didn't come across as a hardcore drug user, even when she did take the drugs.
Yeah.
It's more like party drugs, that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know. The brother, he just seemed like And not a stick in the mud because I get it. He's a responsible one. He's trying to take care of her, but it didn't seem like their problems were real or relatable or
Yeah,
worth.
and maybe I missed it, but I don't know. I kind of felt like there was missing some reason why he was feeling like this to her beyond it was his sister. Like, were their parents dead and she's all he has left? You
You know
know?
what? That's a good question because I'm trying to think. I don't remember them saying anything, but I'm sure it
Yeah,
was implied. But you
yeah,
know what? Even more weird is the way the roommate and the boyfriend acted. It was like, oh, it's just Riley being Riley.
yeah,
Get through it. I'm like, can you imagine if you were roommating with a guy whose sister was always in the house because of she was always messed up with drugs and stuff? There's no way that you would just there's no way you'd be a roommate with that person for very long. I just don't see that.
yeah,
If it was out of control, but if it's just her and him yelling at each other every once in a while. So I don't know. I just felt
yeah,
like it was a fabricated conflict. And I thought the best part was when the boyfriend said, "Don't leave," and she leaves. And then when he disappears, the boyfriend's like, "I told you not to leave." Like
yeah,
her leaving isn't the reason that this guy just disappears, dude.
right.
And the fact that I don't know what they could have thought. They didn't really play that up very well either, because only she believes that something terrible happened at that point. That
Right.
we're led to believe that. So the boyfriend has to think that he's left or he's been maybe abducted at the most. Um, I don't know. It just seemed like a weird dynamic. All those just felt like people put there to be killed later.
Yeah. Yep. And then we have, let me move my window here. Trevor, who is Riley's boyfriend, the
I guess,
betrayer.
boy, yeah. And what's weird about that, the fact that he says he loves her, which gives us the idea that they've known each other longer than just that night. Um, Even though she tried to kind of play it off like it was more like just a fling,
Yeah.
but you get the idea that they've been together a lot longer.
Yeah. And I
Um,
was I was confused how he knew the billionaire. Um,
yeah, they don't
because
explain it at all.
yeah, because the billionaire went missing 6 years ago. Um, so that would have made this guy, I mean, I don't think he's meant to be in his like 30s or something. So
I'm thinking
those,
he's 24.
yeah.
I kind of guess that's the age of the girl and him.
So, you know, how how did he meet this kid? You know?
The only thing I think of is that they somehow met when the box was being delivered, but the lady made it sound like we put the box there to make sure it was hidden. So that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's one of those wide open loopholes you could drive a truck through that you're just
Yeah,
supposed to ignore.
yeah.
And not only
Um,
that, I mean, I don't know, his whole demeanor throughout the whole movie was kind of weird. It was, I think he could do the best he could with what they gave him. It just
yeah,
wasn't much.
and he was supposed to be an alcoholic as well, because that's where they
Right, because
met.
they met at rehab,
But I
and
never
yet he's
saw either
straight.
one of them being an alcoholic. Like, does that make sense? Like, yeah, we saw him
Right.
drinking beer or whatever, but alcoholics,
Well, if
you can tell
uh,
an alcoholic, even one that's been an alcoholic for, so many years and can handle their liquor, there's still signs like his apartment was too clean. Um, it just seemed like he was too together, like he had his wits about him. Maybe he
well,
was
and I
just
think
playing the
later,
part of being an
but
alcoholic.
yeah, later he tells that to the billionaire. I was the plant. I met her. I got her at rehab. He went into rehab or not rehab, but the meetings.
Okay,
You know,
so I must have
he
missed that part.
yeah, that was near the end when the billionaire stabs the roommate with the box. Him and Trevor, he wakes Trevor up when Trevor's passed out. Okay, no, you know what? He stabs the girl. They escape. Trevor gets bit by Chatterbox. They come back to the
Yeah.
house. He's laying on the couch. The billionaire wakes him up and says, "What are you doing? You're supposed to have killed all these people so that the box will get to the point." And he's like, "It'll happen. Everybody's already been marked. Just let it happen." He goes, "I found your mark," and that was the girl. So he obviously was paid to go find somebody to do the box thing.
Yeah.
I
But
just think he didn't think he was going to fall in love with her.
mm,
But it was the loosest of falling in love because he was still more than happy to open the doors and sacrifice her.
yeah.
So
Yep, for sure. Um, and then we have Colin, the boyfriend of Matt. Um,
and they couldn't have got a more stereotypical um you know, I don't want to say like coward, but just like I don't know. It's just everything. He was so cliche on everything.
mhm.
You know, he didn't. I'm shocked they even convinced him to go to the house or whatever. Um, we didn't even see that scene or any of that stuff. But I don't know. Everything about him was pretty like he was just there to fill space.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course we've got Pinhead. Um, I didn't like, and I think it was actually in Mike Enenbach's comment um, that I saw or post on Facebook, which we'll go over. Um, I was glad to maybe it wasn't him, but I was glad to see somebody else on Facebook say that they look too plastic. Did you notice that? The Cenobites?
Yeah, I saw somebody mention that they were excited that they use their own body and skin to be part of the outfits that they were wearing. So, they would like peel some of the skin back and put it in a certain way so that it looked like clothing, but it was really more of their stuff. But the way they did it, just like you said, it looks more unrealistic, plasticky, fake. I think
Yeah.
I think the way they designed the Cenobites in the original Hellraisers 1 and 2 10 times more terrifying. What they should have done is they should have made their clothing out of other people's skin.
Hmm.
That would have been something to be, I don't know. That would have added a level of something.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're just walking around and I get it. I mean, they're supposed to be semi sadomasochistic about what happens to them. But even in the original, we learned that even though he opened the box, I mean, it's not like they picked the pins to be driven into their head. They don't pick, you
Right.
know, the needles to go through their throats and all that kind of stuff. It's part of the process of what happens to them. But I guess once they get to become Cenobites, then that's a different level. And we already know that the way this story was written, just being there when the box is open doesn't get you there because they just kept killing everybody.
Hmm.
So I guess you had to kill 7 people to get the box to Leviathan to be able to ask um, what you wanted to do, and that's how you become a Cenobite, maybe. But that guy, the millionaire, wasn't a Cenobite. They tortured him for 10, was it 6 years? He was
Six
just
years.
six
Yeah.
years. Then he comes back, and he wasn't in control of the box when he made the deal to go back up to Leviathan or whatever. So I don't know what he did to get to that point. And I assume he'll be
Yeah.
like the doctor from the second movie who gets to try and take over the area. But they did such a poor job of explaining what was going on and how
Yeah.
to go about it. I don't know, I wasn't impressed with it. And what stinks is that they'll make a cosmetic change to a character, um, and then they'll be like, well, if you didn't like it, then it's because you're X. And I sometimes it's like, well, you got to actually give us a story, and everybody keeps forgetting the story aspect. They had a clean slate.
Right.
They could have given us an amazing story about how she became Pinhead. They could have done so much more. And what they did was a generic Hellraiser movie and changed a couple
Yeah. And they
characters
gave
and how
us
they looked.
um instead of like nails, they gave us like hat pins with the pearls on the ends. Because that's what they reminded me of is hat pins, old fashioned
Yeah,
hat pins. Um,
I don't know. I mean, somebody had an interesting thing that her throat looks like a key hole.
yeah,
And I thought
yeah,
that's kind of, yeah, that'd be interesting to know about, but we don't know any reason. I mean, that
yeah.
doesn't tell us anything. I didn't like the way they designed the box either. I got it when it started and the box was in the sixth position. I thought, what is this? That box is way too big.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later I figured out it starts normal and then it goes into that. I didn't like it. I didn't like because it ties in again to that they had to kill a person to advance to the next level to get to the
Hmm.
point where you get to have the actual Cenobites coming. But they started showing up immediately with the girl. So they're already there torturing people.
Yep.
So how do you get, so unless you have the victims there to go with it, you couldn't have an audience with the Cenobites to get to that level like you could in the first one. You
Right.
wouldn't have a Frank situation. Uh, but then of course you couldn't have a situation like you did with Christie and all that stuff too. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The
I just none of it. It just felt like a shoddily put together.
yeah. The one thing I thought was pretty cool though, is the scene with the female roommate, where they put her in the van and they're like driving. I
Yeah,
was like, okay, I'm saying to myself, I'm like, okay, I know the Cenobites are going to get her because she got stabbed. She got cut by the box. Um, but how are they going to do that where she's like moving? And I thought the way they did the scene where they like extended the van so she could see like her friends getting farther away and then they disappeared and then the back like extended and opened up into the alternate world or whatever, and you could see like as the van was going, like the doorway would start to open in the road, and then they would, so I thought that part of it was, I thought that was pretty cool, the way
yeah,
they
but it
handled that.
also doesn't it also beg the question is how come they couldn't get in the house? So I mean, the guy
Yeah,
builds the metal around the house, but they can open a doorway into a moving car. They can
yeah,
manipulate all matter.
but they
Yet
can't get in the house.
somehow this guy's figured out that this aluminum or steel or whatever, they didn't even explain what the thing was made of,
Yeah.
was stopping them from getting away to the point where it caught one of the Cenobites as it
Yep.
was running through the room. And so that right there is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. They needed to explain it. And maybe they did and it was during a period when you and I are both twiddling our thumbs or staring
Yeah.
off into space. But I would
Yeah.
think that something like that would stand out if they had explained it. I don't know. I was hoping for a lot more than they delivered.
Yeah. And
Um,
what really got me was the end. So if you remember back, in the original Hellraiser, even though Kirsty was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you Frank and you can let me go," they still went after Kirsty, right?
right.
But this one, when Riley was like, "I'm just going to put the box down. I don't want nothing from you," they're like, "Okay, see ya."
Now, do you think that's because there's seven configurations of the box, which means there should be seven victims? They collected seven victims if you include Chatterbox. So do you think that wipes the slate clean and allows her to walk away without any problem? Or it leaves it open for a sequel where they come back to get her. I could see. But yeah, it
Yeah.
did seem pretty weird that they were like shrugging their shoulders, like, well, we gave it our best shot.
Yeah, pretty much.
We were really hoping to tear your soul apart, but we'll take this guy with. Now that's the other thing though. They did get an extra person because they did take the billionaire finally.
Hmm.
They took away the torture device, which was a very didn't that feel like a cosmically cheap Saw ripoff? What they
Yeah.
were doing to him, I thought, well, yeah, I could have seen that in Saw 5.
I did like when it fell out though, and they showed like his body
Yeah,
reconstructing. That was pretty
and
cool.
and that made me think of Hellraiser 2, and I thought, well, could you imagine if they would have had this technology then? Because
Hmm.
I enjoyed Hellraiser 2, but there's obvious problems with special effects, and so then you're like, if they could have cleaned it up, because I mean, it almost felt like a made for TV Hellraiser, like that kind of budget. So I was like, oh, it'd been pretty cool to see this kind of technology with a story like they did with Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, the originals. But yeah, and for as gory as it tried to be, didn't it feel like it fell short at
Yeah,
every step fell short.
it
Um,
definitely did. I was I'm like, oh,
And
it's 2022. Give me something that was not in the original
and you know
Hellraiser.
what? I don't even mind, that we've seen a lot of different things and stuff. I would have been happy if they could have, if I'd have been happier if they would have just redone the first Hellraiser, almost,
Yeah,
I think, at this point, because it would have been interesting to see how they handled Frank as he's resurrected.
yeah,
And that's the other thing I thought was weird. We know for a fact that you can be resurrected from Hellraiser. Now, of course, he escaped from the thing, but it's obvious that it can't happen. Now, she was smart enough to figure out that these were all going to be curses, whatever she chose. And so she walked away. But I mean, technically, they could have brought Matt back. What they could have done was said, okay, you can have Matt. You have to go kill 7 people and feed the blood and get him back going. And then they would have probably enjoyed that aspect of it. But I don't know, just yeah, the whole I couldn't imagine Pinhead from the original just shrugging his shoulders and being like, all right, we get it.
yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah.
walk away. I feel like they would have been way more persuasive.
Aggressive, yeah,
Yeah.
or way more aggressive, persuasive, um,
But
to
then
getting
again,
her.
I don't even know if I finished my point with the billionaire. They did get the billionaire to do what they wanted to in Leviathan with him. So possibly that was why they allowed her to leave. Or you know what? I know why they let her left because they had that. Because I thought about it when it happened, and I thought, well, this is stupid. Um, it had that. It was the moral of the story moment. Remember,
Yeah,
was that her curse was to keep on living because it's hard. And I
yeah,
thought, okay, this was the moral. Yeah, this is the afternoon special where
yeah,
I get this at the end of the thing where Pinhead turns and looks directly into the camera and says, life is tough. You just have to, you're going to have to suffer with that information. And I
yeah,
thought, okay, that's why she's walking away. Yeah. But either way, it was kind of dumb.
yeah. I mean, out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it a two. Um,
No,
just for,
I'd give it 3 for being a movie. I'd give it a 2 if as part of a franchise.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, as a movie, it was a movie. I could see somebody sitting down and being like, okay, this is fine. There's enough gore, sex, whatever that it is that you watch the horror movies for. There's some tension. There's a couple jumps, things. I didn't find any of it to be, I don't remember ever once thinking, oh, that was a good scare moment or,
yeah, no.
and
Oh,
I don't even, and they had so many opportunities because the chains are flying out all the time. They had
yeah,
an opportunity to jump scare you.
yep. So what I wanted to bring up that I found was pretty funny was the lady on oxygen. All of a sudden, she's able to run down the hall, and it didn't look like she was struggling for breath at all.
Yeah. Which makes
And
me wonder, do you think that's a benefit or a side effect of being stabbed and becoming part of the other dimension?
I don't know. But you know what else I noticed about every most of the people who got stabbed, they all, especially like the first one at the very beginning of the movie at the party, he almost acted like he was drugged.
Yeah, and I
And
think
then
they,
and
yeah,
Matt and acted the same way.
and so
So
did
it was,
Riley. Riley
yeah.
did too.
And so it's like, what's that all about? Like,
I wonder if that's like some sort of like interdimension opening, and then it opens up your other senses so that you can see the Cenobites, and maybe it gives you that euphoric, almost drugged experience. I can't imagine that they would inject them with any kind of painkiller. That
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. So in my mind, it had to be some sort of um, ability for them to be multi-dimensional. But they don't
yeah,
explain it at all, and they don't do a very good job. Other than, yeah, it does kind of feel. It almost felt date rapey, the first one.
yeah, yeah.
Where he's got the guy. I thought initially, I thought the guy had drugged him,
Me too.
and that was just part of the thing. And then later, as they get cut and they do the same thing, then you're like, oh, okay, it's part of the box. But yeah, you're right. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't think the Cenobites would need them to be like drugged
Yeah, they
to
wouldn't want
get
that.
them because they're just going to shoot chains at them and rip their faces off.
Right. They want the pain to
Yeah,
be maximized.
yeah. They
So
want you to struggle. They want you to fear. If you're like drugged and like, oh, you may not be experiencing as much fear because your senses are all off,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I'm not even sure fear plays into it at all. I don't even sure they cared about the scared part. I think they were
Yeah.
100% into just the pain of
Yeah.
it all, which to me feels lesser. You want the full picture. I would assume they would want the full picture. Um, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, the Cenobites looked cool. You can't deny that. They were
They
pretty.
looked okay, but like but we already have in our heads,
Yeah.
something. We have the blueprint,
Hmm.
and it just felt like they moved too far away from it. And I people want to complain about the way when they remake a movie, if they do something that's, if it's drastically different, it's got to really hit, and these don't really hit. And I don't know if they don't hit because they don't, they don't live up to the originals, or they don't hit because they're not giving enough to do to make them stand out. Because
Right.
they really don't stand out very well. I initially, though, I thought the other girl was going to get more. Um, the one that had her head that was kind of like,
A hat, kind of.
yeah, and then the pins would go down to her shoulders or her neck, and so it kind of gave her this weird. And she kind of reminded me of the girl from the first one that had the thing in
The
her
throat.
throat.
Yeah.
So it looked like
Yeah.
kind of that, but kind of inverted, and her skin of her head was kind of stretched.
Right.
I because she had quite a few lines initially, so I thought, okay, well maybe they are going to revert, because I don't remember Pinhead being front and center in the book. Um, and so I thought, well, maybe they're going to follow that. They're going to give the leadership to this other character, which I thought would have been interesting. They
Yeah.
could have done that, and that might have been a better way of going about it. But I miss Butterball, isn't that his
Yeah.
name? So
Yep.
he wasn't there. I just I wish they would have done a better job of um, giving us either more backstory or a more convincing story.
Yeah. And I like the way they had Chatterbox. They had the Chatterbox as almost like it seemed like probably like 7 feet tall, you know. Um, but what I didn't like is after Chatterbox got stabbed with the box, it kind of just stood there and was like, you know,
Yeah.
I
Well,
would
I
have
don't,
liked to have seen Chatterbox freaking out, like trying to, avoid, even though they know they can't. I would have kind of
but
liked to see
that
some kind of struggle, like even facially, or some kind of like anxiety or
right.
something,
But the
not
question,
just stand there and let it, okay.
but do we think that the Cenobites are reborn, like secularly? You know what I mean? Like, is Chatterbox done? Is he dead and gone, or is he going to be back next Tuesday? Is this something that these characters can't die? You know what I mean? So if he knows that all he's going to experience is that instant of pain, and he's going to be back, then he wouldn't freak out. But if that was the end of his existence, then I guess, yeah, then it doesn't make sense for him not to freak out, unless they're just tired. Well, and you get the idea of them just being tired of being these, but these
Yeah.
beings, they don't have that. These beings are I mean, she even says it at one point when she is talking to Riley, and Riley says she doesn't want anything, and she's like, well, you're being stagnant, you're living life, but that's not enough. You need to push the boundaries. So for them, I would assume that to them it's just pushing the boundaries, and that's probably why he didn't freak out. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a weird one, because not only did he just stand there, or she or it or whatever, he took like 5 steps back to make sure he was away from everybody, and just stood
Yeah.
there and then got destroyed, which goes again to that weird, well, that's not what the box is for. The box isn't for destroying people who get stabbed with it. It's to open the gateway to give people the opportunity to, enjoy what the
Hmm.
Cenobites have to offer,
Yeah.
which which is totally, like you said, totally lost. This movie lost the sensual nature of Clive Barker's stuff, and it lost the horrific, feeling of, there's no hope, there's no anything, there's just the creatures killing everybody. But the whole idea of opening the box was that you would be introduced to this new world. Now it's a lie, but the people that open the box don't realize that.
Right.
So I don't know.
Um, yeah. So I've
And
seen. Go ahead.
I was just say, I looking at Pinhead right now. I just didn't like. I wasn't
Yeah.
impressed.
Wasn't impressed. So, you know, it's been out since yesterday. I've seen, people have conversations with people about the movie, and you know, Mike Enenbach, who we both know. Um, I kind of think, and I'm sure you feel the same way. He kind of hit it on the nail on the head with this post that he made. Is the new Hellraiser just a Hallmark Halloween movie? The Cenobites are cool, the rest is wooden, bereft. King's books translate better to film because of his scene building. Barker should be animated to capture his prose. The inhuman beauty is diluted and cannot be conveyed by practical means. The horrific spectacle becomes tarnished, and we are left with a few good scenes trapped in the mire. Maybe I've become a snob, but settling for half measures is a waste of time and money. Um, he said it perfectly. And he apparently was not the person I saw say that the Cenobites looked very plastic. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Well, he's
you're
true.
the
I mean,
yeah,
I think he's right, but I also think that I mean, yeah, I could see where you'd say Barker being animated would capture it a little bit better, but at the same time, we've seen Hellraiser 1 and 2 do a perfect job of capturing the idea of
mm,
Hellraiser. So that's the problem. The problem is that in 86 and 87 or 7 and 88, whenever they did the two movies, they did it. They did a good job. And this is supposed to be a reimagining of, and building off of that success. And it's a step backwards.
yeah,
They
for
could have
sure.
easily conveyed, they had the opportunity. The blueprint was there. They stole a little bit off of it, but everything they tried to do to make it more, I don't know, fit into the time period, maybe, I thought was the wrong direction. Now, here's the problem. Have you read anything with the? I can't. I believe neither one of us has read anything with the Cenobites other than the Hellbound Heart.
Right. Yeah.
So some of this stuff in this movie may have come from other text. So maybe we're missing out because of that. I'm sure Mike's read more of it,
Yeah.
but he's 100% right. They basically, it's just like I said. They took a movie, had an idea, and they just needed a spokesperson, and they said, okay, let's do Hellraisers, and now make it work. Pinhead's in there, now make it work. Or they could have made that a Halloween or a Friday the 13th. They just changed the location. It's
Yep.
the same idea. They needed a bad guy, a boogeyman, and they picked Pinhead and the Cenobites and gave us nothing to care about in the long run. And I thought 2 hours, man. Good Lord.
Yeah. I was just like, this movie is like still going.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, we could have cut out a lot. But yeah, I
Hmm.
totally agree with Mike here that I think it's funny, Hallmark Halloween movie, because
Yeah, I love that
it
because
does have that.
when I saw that post from him, I was like, well, that's a good way to phrase it. That's a really good way to phrase it.
And you know what? There was an opportunity for this movie to be a bad movie and not hold up to the originals and still be enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
B movie feel, and you could have got into it, over the top of, gore or silly situations. But they were trying to be so serious that it just makes it that much more worse. So you end up with a movie that's not good and also not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And so we end up wasting 2 hours of our lives watching it.
Yeah. I mean, if I had paid money to go to the theater to see that, I would have
Ooh,
I would have been upset.
yes, I would have been
I,
very upset.
yeah.
What happens, or if we would have paid regular price, when you go
Yeah.
to video on demand and you got to put down $10 or right now, like if you want to see Fletch, I think it's like $24 to rent
Yeah.
it. And you're like, I'm not gonna pay 20. I mean, I get it. If I had like six people in the house to watch it with me, then it would make sense.
Yeah.
But that's like, that would tick me off too. So thank God it was on Hulu. Although, I have seen a lot of people that did enjoy it. I just
Yeah.
don't,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
and
saw a
I
post earlier from someone that I don't know. I think I saw it in the Splatterpunk horror readers group. She posted that she absolutely loved it. Um, and she did acknowledge that the sensual or sexual aspect of Hellraiser was missing. But she just went on all about accolading the, is that even a word? The movie. And someone had written a comment on that post about what bothered him about it was the lack of music.
Yeah.
He said the original Hellraiser had, and it makes me want to go back and watch the original Hellraiser because I don't really pay attention to soundtracks. Um, but he said that one had music in the that coincided with the scene, but this one had very little music in the
You know
background.
what? And when you say it out loud, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I don't remember there being anything.
Yeah,
A good score placement is everything.
yeah,
And especially in a horror movie, it really helps build with the tension. And I get, there are some directors that think that less is more, and by having that gone, that they can focus on some of the other stuff, and maybe it'll draw your attention away from what they're trying to do. But yeah, I don't remember there. I'm trying to think, is there any music in that except for the beginning? I don't remember any music standing out whatsoever in this movie.
yeah,
Um, and that's yeah, I do love movie scores, so um, that's kind of weird. Yeah, I didn't even think about it, and maybe that's what made the movie feel longer, is
yeah,
that it doesn't have anything to pace it, so you're
yeah,
just kind of sitting there watching it, and it's just taking forever.
yeah. Um, but and it's funny because I posted that I was watching the movie last night. I do that kind of so that I'm actually doing the homework for our podcast. But
But usually, it reminds me that I need to be doing the homework, so I'm glad you do it.
and Rob Carter had posted, "Oh, it's out. I just got to work. I can't
Yeah,
watch it," or
I
something like
saw
that.
that.
And I
I
was
hope he
like,
enjoys it.
I started, I hit reply and I typed out this, "Oh, now don't worry about it. You're not missing anything." But I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna delete and let him watch it because I honestly think that he'll feel pretty similar to what we've said. You know, um, as I was telling you earlier, Jason, Nikki, and Marion Echevarria, they feel the same way about it. Um, so because we were, in our group chat talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know if the bar is too high. If this was, I mean, this isn't like a sacred cow, especially for me. Like I
Yeah,
said before, I'm not a huge Hellraiser person, but uh, without, I mean, I can't imagine this being high on anybody's list. I just did not think it was a very well done reimagining or anything. They would have
yeah,
been better off. And I wonder though, you know what? No, I don't even think having the original Cenobites would have saved this movie.
no,
I think he would have maybe had a little more presence, but when it's all said and done, it's a poorly written movie
yeah. I
with
mean, the scene outside the house where the pinhead is just standing there, across the courtyard or whatever it is, um, that's not terrifying.
yeah.
This just it's not
Yeah, and I don't
terrifying.
even and the way they played it off, I mean, she just goes out to talk to him, and then the roommate comes and grabs her and or the brother's boyfriend comes and drags her back in the house. Like, you've done enough, now they're gonna come get us or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't seem it was one of those weird things where nobody believes you and then everybody believes you moments,
Hmm.
where they don't really kind of coexist in the real world, but they because it was convenient, all of a sudden
Yeah,
everybody believes what's going on. Um, I would have preferred 30 minutes shorter and then 30 minutes of the aftermath where we watch them try and explain where everybody's gone,
yeah,
because people are going to be looking for the roommate and the brother and Trevor, even though he's a jerk,
yeah,
and there's like paperwork and all that stuff. So I would have been more interested to see how they wiggled out of that instead of walking away from the
yeah.
Cenobites.
Well, we're back, and we just still don't know where my brother is, or now our roommate is missing. So,
Yeah, well, hopefully her parents are dead so that they
yeah,
don't have that problem to deal with. But yeah, no, I was I wanted to, I wanted it. You know what? I didn't even want to love it. I wanted to not feel like I lost 2 hours of my life. And that's
Yeah.
what I felt like when it was over. I thought, man, I so much I could have got done.
Yeah.
And and that's always a bad feeling, especially when
Yeah.
you hear such positive things about Terrifier 2 and other sequels coming out right now, and you're like, I was like, man, we could have watched that. We could have tried
Hmm.
Smile looks amazing. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of horror movies out right now that I was like, man, that we could have done those. But I was interested to see when I hear a reimagining, I was expecting a little bit more from the Hellbound Heart.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they don't have any of that was kind of disappointing too. I mean, there's not even I no Easter eggs, no subtle nods. This is just Hellraiser 6.
Yeah. And they had um it took a long time to get to that iconic phrase, we have such sights to show you.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I mean, I guess that's the only Easter egg you get
Yeah.
too when it's all said and done. That they modulated her voice to the point where it wasn't really even, it felt like it could have been anybody voiced over.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I was just disappointed. I hate doing that because I was hoping we were going to get on here and we are going to be like, oh, this is cool.
Yep.
Everybody needs to watch it. This is such a fun idea. They all the choices that they've made were the right choices, and I don't feel like any choice they made was the right choice.
No, the
I felt like the entire thing was too long. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
too long. And like
I wrote.
why did Riley need to be a drug addict? Um,
I kind of get that because that leads to the rest of the roommate and the brother not believing her.
yeah, but
But
people
but
wouldn't
that
believe you anyways.
right, and then but the other and the but but it didn't matter in the long run because they were just like, oh, we'll just come home and we'll figure it out, and so it didn't need to be. You're right. It does totally didn't need to be there. I when you shrunk the screen down, I have some stuff written on Word, and the third line I have, it was too long and didn't know what it wanted to be. And I think
Mhm.
that sums up Hellraiser right
Yep.
there. That should be the tagline.
Yep.
All right, this week, the Not Stephen King book of the week, we're going to do Exactly the Wrong Things. And this is a cool little, I guess it's a chapbook because you can go over to Kickstarter and you can still get it as a chapbook, but it's in a Godless ebook exclusive. And it's got 3 stories uh, done by Joseph Monks, Candace Nola, and Franklin Wales. And the whole point of this is all 3 of them had to write a story using the opening line of Ed Lee's um, Big Head. Yeah, Big Head. Sorry, wanted to make sure I get all the facts correct. And so they have the opening line from Big Head. They each one started, and then each one wrote a completely different splatter punk intense, incredible story. Um, all 3 of them are really fun, and it's starting to make the rounds for reviews, and everybody is just loving it. So I wanted to get it out there. I've read it, and so it's one of those ones that'll take you. And it's each story is so different and so fun that you just want to keep reading them. You almost wish that they had 3 more going at the end of this. So maybe this is a series that'll start up. But it's real. If you're big into Aaron and Daniel's stuff, you're really gonna like this. This was actually an introduction to me for Franklin Wales and Joseph Monks. I haven't read any of their stuff. I
Yeah,
never.
their names don't sound familiar to me, and you know me, I'm like all over the community.
Yeah, I was surprised, and so I was like, but of course Candace is in it, and Candace is
Yeah.
one of my favorites, your favorites. So
Yeah.
I was definitely interested in checking it out. It is, like I said, a Godless exclusive, so I'll put the link down below. I'll also put the link for the Kickstarter in case you are interested, because I believe there are still some chat books available, and you can go over there and do whatever it is that Kickstarter needs you to do to get on their list. Uh,
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I had seen Candace posting about it um on Facebook, and I was honestly a little confused about it. I mean, I should have reached out to her, but it just kept, you know, leaving my mind. So I'm actually glad you brought this book to our Not Stephen King Book of the Week, because now that I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and
each,
it's such a fun, especially if you're a big fan of Ed Lee, and he's behind the project and everything, and he's got if you go to Godless, you can kind of see it blurry on this cover picture I took from Godless. He's got this big blurb talking about it. But it's one of his big splatterpunk novels, and it's a killer first line. It is very intense. So it's amazing, not really amazing. It's fun and exciting to see three different writers take that one line and just take it on a take you on a trip.
yeah,
And then also then you can go back to the original and read the original to see what Ed Lee did with his,
yeah.
big
I
head.
like I like funky projects like this.
Yeah, it's
Um,
always fun and you get a
yeah,
different perspective.
yeah.
Um,
Like what was that one book from D&T? I think it was Into the Void. Um, I think that's the one where they had, I forget how many authors. Each author wrote a chapter.
yeah, yeah,
So things like that I think are fun to read. So, to see, especially for that other one, like I said, to see if you could tell the
yeah. Seeing how well
difference.
it blends and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But this
Yeah.
sounds really interesting. You all have the same line to start with, and then you just take it
And let me tell
wherever.
you, all three of them took it completely different and insane and extreme paths. And
Okay.
so it's really fun to get an eye, to dip your toe, especially if you're big into extreme horror, you're not going to be shocked. If you're not into extreme horror and you're like, oh, this sounds like a fun idea and I'm going to read it, be prepared because they're gonna blow your socks off. There are some very extreme elements to all three stories. So
Nice.
well, I mean, you'll know it once you figure out what the opening line is. It can only be extreme. This isn't
Yeah.
going to be something that's just a kiddie book. But
So, it's
um,
funny. I have the Big Head. I haven't read it yet, so I'm gonna get this, and then I'm gonna read the Big Head, and then I'm gonna read this and
well, there
see.
you go. And then you'll have four different ways to
Yeah.
see which way that could go. And I think that's a good idea. I think everybody should port Ed Lee because I love Ed Lee stuff. And I think everybody should get this book too because it's just an interesting thing. If you like the chapbooks, I think that's kind of a cool thing that's going on right now. I know Patrick Harris the third is putting out a lot of chapbooks, and I guess you could kind of consider what Daniel Aaron and Christopher are doing as kind of a chapbooky.
Mm,
It's like it's just past a chapbook, but it's the same that limited edition, smaller reads, one time kind of thing. I think that's kind of fun.
yeah.
And this is like that, and this is definitely something everybody should jump into and check out.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, like Eric said, we'll have a link to Godless, and also to the Kickstarter down in the comments. And we're just gonna say, please don't hate us if you really loved the Hellraiser 2022 movie.
Yeah,
Leave us a comment. Let us know why we're wrong. Um, we're always up for a discussion. Um, so yeah,
just
thank you.
know that we wanted it to be good. You
Yeah,
know,
I did. Well, I even told you, I'm like, oh, I just hope it's really good. Um,
yeah, we
you
should have
know,
set the bar much, much lower, and then
yeah,
we wouldn't have been as disappointed, I think.
yeah. Oh well, you can't win them all, right?
Right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We wanted this to be a quick hit, but it looks like it's a little bit longer than a quick hit. We had a lot to say.
I guess we did. We had a lot more. I thought we were going to be in and out.
Yep. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time when we find out what's in the box.
Take it easy.